The last time I caught up with you, you said, I'm embarking on a journey of structural reform. And offset, you said to me, I have delivered. What have you delivered in structural reform for tourism?
Yes, last time we met was in Dubai in April 2018. Since then, and as I mentioned at the time, Egypt launched an IMF program in November 2016.
Yep.
IMF programs are usually involving monetary policy, fiscal policy, and structural reforms. Structural reforms are extremely important to unleash the potential for GDP. They're always done on a sectoral level. Tourism in Egypt is 15% of GDP, so a sector that can actually contribute so much to the economy is tourism if structural reforms are designed properly and implemented.
What is the top structural reform that you've effected?
So in November 2018, we launched the ETRIP, Egypt Tourism Reform Program. It's a policy framework. For the first time, we are dealing with the sector with a preemptive attitude rather than reactive. In there, we explain our vision, which was designed collectively with our stakeholders, the private sector. It was launched from Parliament, and it includes our international partners. The structural reforms include a focus on the software of the industry, which are the people, capacity building and training. It also involves the hardware, which is the infrastructure related to tourism. And that is where a point which is very important for investors, because for the first time in 14 years, we have new standards for a classification of hotels, and also new types of hotels have entered into the guidelines for Egyptian tourism.
Is that structural reform story helping you induce private capital at forums like this? Who are you talking to? How much capital are you hoping to bring back to Egypt?
Yes, absolutely. Globally, there needs to be more talk on tourism. Tourism is such an important sector for the world. It's 10% of global GDP. It's 30% of exports and services. It's 1 in 10 jobs. If today countries are working hard to create job opportunities, tourism is an open door. If reforms are designed properly with private-public partnerships and explained in a comprehensive and comprehensible way.
Well, what are you hoping to achieve? $1 billion of inward investment? I mean, FDI is the lifeblood of many of the Middle East countries. So what are you hoping to achieve? Is it $1 billion ticket? What have you promised the Prime Minister? I can get $500 million, I can get $1 billion. What are you promising that you can bring from China?
So what's very unique about Egyptian tourism is that it's 98% privately led. So in a situation where there's a lot of debate on how much government involvement should be there, how much private sector should be there, we give a very good example, not just for the region, but globally, that tourism, which has been able to rebound in a very significant way, has been led by the private sector, given that the government creates the proper infrastructure, both legislatively as well as when it comes to designing these structural reforms.
Rania, you're not going to give me a number.
What I can tell you is that in 2018-19, which is our fiscal year, we reached the highest tourism revenues in Egypt's history. And I credit that to the work that has been done jointly between the private sector and the government through the ETRIP, which is the Egypt Tourism Reform Program.
So 2018-2019 was $12.5 billion,
yes,
if I'm correct?
Yes.
So what have you clocked in then? You're on track to beat that number. You're in full recovery mode. A better number than that?
So basically, this number is very significant for more than one reason. The first reason is that the number of tourists are not yet at the peak that we saw in 2010, which means that the duration of time spent in the country is longer and the spend per night is higher. So this is very important, that the type of tourist that Egypt receives today is a different type of tourist. That's number one. Number two, by the end of this calendar year, which is by December 2019, we would have reached to the peak of 2010 in terms of tourist numbers.
Okay.
So all of these events and all of these developments are, give me some assurance that the track that we are taking, whether it's with our promotion and marketing campaigns, whether it's our outreach with the international community, international institutions, UNWTO, EBRD, IFC, etc., all of this is working in favor of the sector.
In terms of the growth and the outreach, do you want to deal more in the heritage story, or are you prepared to countenance? I think a number of years ago, there talks of a Disney theme park, there talks about other things. How high a priority is something like that for you? Is that going to happen?
So basically, today, what is very important, and we're here in Bloomberg New Economy Forum, data is extremely important for any public policy. What we do is we study the travel trends, like any other product. So tourism is like any other product. You see that today travelers are looking for experience, they're looking for diversity of offer, and they're looking for being part of the local community. So all of these are elements which we take into account when we're designing our policy. So for example, we have destination branding. We are not only looking at cultural heritage or sun and sea, we're actually exploring adventure tourism through the Sinai Trail, the Red Sea Mountain Trail, which actually got to be among the 100 greatest places to visit according to Time magazine. There's also, of course, the Grand Egyptian Museum, which we talked about last time. It's $1 billion investment from the Egyptian government, and it's the only museum in the world dedicated to one civilization. It's the only place where you can take a selfie with the pyramids and see the full collection of Tutankhamun.
Okay.